Well, with only one game remaining in 2025, the Blues sit 3 points out of a playoff spot in the Western Conference. So, as the calendar turns to 2026, what should the Blues try to accomplish next year? What are some of the key goals and resolutions for Doug Armstrong, Jim Montgomery, Robert Thomas, Jordan Binnington, and other key players for the new year? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast, talking all things blues. It's John and Alec back with you as always. If you're new to the pod, we'd appreciate if you would subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening, and engage with us however you see fit. It's been a little while since we've been on here. I think at least, what is it, 2 weeks, Alex, since we had an episode. Took a little
Yeah.
bit of a break for the holidays, but yeah. Did you have a good break, a good holiday, Alec?
Yeah. There were some Blues wins in there, so that was maybe
Yeah.
the highlight of my holiday season. But had a nice time spending with family, with friends, as you do during this time of year. Gave some nice gifts. I always love gift giving. So yeah,
Hmm.
I would say it was a good year, all things considered.
Nice. And the last time I saw you, Alec, was in person. Flew out to St. Louis for a couple Blues games, and Alec and I were at the Jets shutout and then the Rangers OT loss. So I mean, both exciting games. One better ending than the other, but yeah, it was good to see you, buddy. Um, Well, I think we should start off by, as I said at the top, we're going to be talking about some of the key goals and resolutions for Blues players and personnel in 2026. Um, but since it's been a while, we should hit some of the major headlines that have happened since we last talked here on the pod. I believe our last episode was before the Jets game. So it was after the Holloway injury was announced and after Stenberg was called up. So that's sort of what we talked about last time. We've got a few games in there now of sample size to talk about Otto Stenberg. So, Alec, I want to hear your thoughts on the rookie's performance so far and what could end up being a cup of coffee, but what could end up being sort of his first campaign as a young player. So, thoughts on Stenberg early on in his NHL career?
I think Stenberg's impressed as one of the Springfield darlings of young Blues crop coming up. Stenberg was sort of the next in line as a former first round pick to take over and be a contributor at least. I think most people expected for Otto Stenberg to be sort of a middle six or more realistically bottom six player. It looks like it's profiling about that much so far. But hey, he's got 4 points in his first 6 games, so he's finding a way to get to the puck and weaponize the negative parts of the ice or the neutral parts of the ice, where his teammates can really take advantage of. He doesn't have a goal yet, but does have 4 assists, and he's been an overall positive for the team for sure. So I don't know if he'll get an extended run this year. I think the Otto Stenberg timeline is only just beginning. I think this probably more of a cup of coffee than anything else to maybe get a little bit ahead of the discussion. But with Stenberg, I think in that cup of coffee, he can be a very, very good depth piece and a good depth piece going forward into the new year.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we saw him play more than maybe three more games. I want to say I think part of the call up was just the injury bug had bitten the Blues so bad, and so as people start to get healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if he was sent back down. Like I agree, he's looked pretty good in his first taste of the NHL, and so I think that could be a good way to sort of send it back down on a positive note, but with sort of a laundry list of things to work on at the lower level before probably at this point being called up to start the year next year is sort of what it's looking like if all goes well for Otto. So yeah, happy to see him play so well in his first cup of coffee here. Another big thing that has happened is we talked last week, or I guess last episode, I should say, about um, Jonathan Berggren being on waivers from the Detroit Red Wings, and we talked about the possibility of the Blues making that waiver claim. And could he be a good fit? Well, the Blues did it. So they claimed Berggren off of waivers, and he's been playing in St. Louis, and he was a healthy scratch in their game last night against Buffalo. I believe Monty said something about details and stuff like that not being where they need to be with Bergeron. But what if like what has been your reaction to Bergeron, who's kind of come up and I guess come into St. Louis and impressed a lot of people? I've been pretty pleasantly surprised with his performance. He was it the was it the New York game, or was it the Florida game where he had a couple goals? I think it was New York, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was New York.
Yeah, so got to see that in person, and he was a difference maker for sure. Like it looks like he, um, at least at the beginning of his time at St. Louis, has been a. Oh, I guess they only scored one, so I don't guess he would have scored two in that game. But anyways, he's had a few good games, I should say, in his time at St. Louis. And so, what have your thoughts been on Berger and his fit with the Blues so far?
Yeah, Bergeron's definitely impressed. I think that's easy to say. And the way that he is really fighting for a spot on this roster gives me a lot of hope that he can contribute more and into being a potentially mainstay on the bottom six. I mean, this was a possibility we always talked about, and it's the kind of move you hope that a struggling team can make to be a little bit more savvy and to be a little bit more ahead of the curve. And to the Blues' credit, they went out and executed the waiver claim successfully, and he's found success in St. Louis. I don't know necessarily how long I see that extending through. Like if Bergeron is still playing the same role on the roster by this time next year, I might be a little bit more surprised. But hey, if he can establish himself as a solid third line winger, then this would be a miraculous spot to find a player of that caliber. Um, but I think you ride the hot hand while you've got it. It's been leading to some success on the ice. You scored a couple goals, and um, it's never a bad thing to uh, give a player a opportunity when he hasn't had one, as long as you're not taking opportunity away from others. And in this case, I don't really think there's anyone who's missing out on an opportunity here. I mean, maybe you could say Justin Carbonneau could be a call up, but maybe that's a late season call up they want to make because they want him to stay in St. Louis. And this might not be an opportune time for Carbonneau to be called up, or a guy of his caliber, like maybe a Pikarchik, to be called up, because it's this kind of weird interstitial. There's still guys injured. Guys are going to come back from injuries, so someone will have to be sent down. Versus after, theoretically, potentially, you've moved pieces away at the deadline, and that opportunity opens up, maybe that's when a guy with a little bit more standing in the organization gets a shot. So I think it was the right time to make this kind of move. I think it was the right idea, and it's had success. So yeah, I mean, my mentality with the Bergeron thing overall is just enjoy it while you've got it. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm on the same page. Former second round draft pick, but only barely. I think he was 33rd overall, so like just shy of being a first rounder. And the Blues are giving a lot of credit to guys who have been high-ish draft picks in recent years. Holloway and Broberg and some other guys like that. So yeah, I think I have been pleasantly surprised. I know that his luck kind of ran out in Detroit, and that's part of why he was put on waivers in the first place. But it was also, he was just kind of crowded out by similar players that were getting it done. And so I'm hoping it was just kind of an odd man out type of thing. A change of scenery could go a long way for him, and so far it has. So, like you said, hopefully that keeps up, and we'll just enjoy it while it lasts. Um, since then, there's been some exciting wins. I mean, like I said, shut out the Jets, who now don't look very good. But um,
At least we got one thing
lost.
right.
At least we got one thing right. Played, I would say, the best game I've seen them play all year against the Panthers and beat them 6-2. They looked so good in that game.
Yeah.
They were fast, they were connected. It just looked like Blues hockey again. And it's a shame that magic couldn't last for a few more games, but lost to Tampa Bay, finally beat Nashville, and then lost to Buffalo last night. So, I mean, they've been mostly competitive games despite only winning a few of them here. But I think they still are kind of struggling to get anything going. But I think this is kind of a conversation for another time. Just wanted to sort of recap some of the results that we've seen in recent games. Um, the last bit of news and notes that I want to touch on before we get to our main segment for the episode is just that Kairu and Snuggerud are back from injury. Snuggerud, I think, was 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and Kairu was only week to week, so it was sort of he could have been back whenever, and so now they are back. So that's good. Any thoughts on their recent return and also the Pius Suter injury? If anyone missed that, the Blues, excuse me, the Blues announced, I believe it was yesterday on the 29th, that Pius Suter was out. I think it's, Alec, do you know the 4 weeks? Is it four
It's
weeks?
4 weeks and they'll reevaluate.
4 weeks and reevaluate. So, I mean, another blow, but at least it wasn't like a Robert Thomas or someone like that. But anyways, thoughts on Kyron Snug coming back and also the Suter injury here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge addition back to the team. Your leading scorer for the majority of the season, and your young, promising, electrifying, galvanizing rookie that just brings so much heat and energy to the lineup. It can't be overstated how important this is, and I think we started to see a little bit of good there. I think the Buffalo game was maybe another step backwards in the wrong direction. So it's hard to say really, but it's the type of thing that could energize a team. Maybe it's still coming, but hey, I get to watch two of my favorite Blues players play hockey again. I'm going to be happy about that, especially Jimmy Snuggerud. I mean, I thought he was going to score in his first game back, and he just looks like he hasn't lost a step. He just needed a little bit of time off. It sucks about the Calder stuff, but what can you do? That's hockey, and Snuggerud has been a true joy to witness play hockey, and looks like he's going to continue to do that. So, in a season where things aren't really going to plan and the team is kind of not in a good spot. You got to find things to be happy about, and I'm definitely happy about watching Jimmy Snuggerud play hockey. And then Kairu, also, one of my favorite players, but um, I think from a logistical standpoint, should hopefully energize some of that goal scoring once again, and help the offensive side of things, as well as his defense. Really coming along as one of the better defensive skaters on the team. Um, on paper, this is a huge addition to what the Blues have and what they had. But at least from the Buffalo game last night, that didn't look so good. Uh, and we'll see where it goes. I suppose I would like to think that better things are coming, but I feel like I've been thinking that all season. So, what can you do? Talk me out of it, John. The enlightened one.
I don't think I can talk you out of it. You mean just the Blues and their struggles?
Like I want to see some positive upside here, um, and I think that there is on paper, but we've been playing the on paper game for however many months the season has been going. So
Yeah, look, I mean, on paper, the positive thing is that the Blues are only 3 points out of a playoff spot, right? And if they had won last night, they would have been 1 point out of a playoff spot. There's a lot of parity in the league right now, and um, So I mean that sounds like good news on paper, but you look at points percentage, um, and they're not looking great. You know, they're um, have a 475 points percentage. So it's just that like eye test, it doesn't look good, right? And the quality of hockey being played is not great. They have um, let me scroll around here. The third most overtime losses in the Western Conference at eight,
I
and
don't
so
think we have an overtime win yet,
we
correct?
don't. Yeah, they have not won in overtime all season. So that's definitely disappointing. Um, there's just and while they are only 3 points out of that second wild card spot, there's four teams between them and that spot. So it's tough. And let me see here. All but one of them have games in hand, and so it's not looking good. It's not looking good. And so I don't know how much talking you out of it I can do because I'm not feeling particularly optimistic about it myself. But I think there are still like important things that we have to watch for the rest of the season, important storylines to track, important trends to keep an eye on, and then important things that need to happen, things that need to be accomplished throughout the remainder of the season. And so I think that's sort of what we can start to talk about here as we shift to our main segment is um, for specific players and for honestly the team as a whole as well. What should be some of their key goals in the upcoming calendar year, I guess. And I think when we say 2026, we're um, mostly talking about the remainder of this current season and less so the summer and start of next season. That's probably a little bit premature at this point, but um, where do you want to start this conversation? Because I mean, I have a few players that I've got my eye on. Why don't we actually start with the big bad man in net, um, Jordan Binnington? Although he hasn't been quite as big or as bad as would have hoped. He's been bad, but not in the way you would have hoped. um, Statistically, one of, if not the worst goalie in the league so far this season. Um, it has been rough for Jordan Binnington. Probably going to wind up being the worst year of his career, to be honest, unless things turn around. And so, in terms of like a New Year's resolution for Jordan Binnington, it's just turn things around. You know, don't like make this so it's not your worst career year. And I think just to put it simply, it's just for me, for Jordan Binnington, win the starter role back. He is currently not really being deployed like a starter. Joel Hofer is getting the lion's share of starts right now, and you know, honestly, like good for Hof. Like he's kind of stabilized a little bit this year. It's not like he is you know lights out or anything like that, but he's gotten his save percentage back above 900. Um, he has a goals allowed average back under three per game, and so I think things are starting to look a little better for Joel Hofer. And you know he's kind of showed up in some big games, and so um, it's good for Hofer. And if I were to pick one for him, I would say keep it up. You know, but for Jordan Bennington, he needs to be the starter. He needs to not be outplayed by Joel Hofer at this point in his career, and so for him, I'm just saying win that role back, stabilize, and look like the goalie that you actually are. So thoughts on Binner and that resolution for him.
I think it's exactly as you put it that he has to win the starter job back because it's not his net anymore. It's a 50-50 split at best for Binner. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Hofer is having an amazing December. He's having gem after gem after gem. So it's not looking good for Binnington. I think that challenge and that competition needs to push him. And I think this team is ready to push him too. It's starting to feel like the conversations around Binner are starting to get a little bit less resolute than they have been in a long time, um, especially with how Hofer's been playing as of late. Uh, and so I think that that competition needs to push him, and he needs to uh, play at a higher level and perform at a higher level on a consistent basis if he wants a spot on this team long term. I don't think he's playing for his job this season, but 2, 3 years down the line, especially when his contract runs up, this could be a reason to go one way or the other. Um, and then I'm sure after saying this, he's going to light it up at the Canadian Olympic team, and then probably go on an insane run to end the year with a 902 save percentage again. And
And
um,
that'd be great, honestly, if that could do that for him. Yeah.
yeah, he he's been saving it for the Olympics, perhaps, but um, yeah, I think Binner is fighting for the future of this team long term, and that's a new place for him to be in, new position.
Yeah. I mean, I think you go back. They just played their 40th game of the season last night against Buffalo. Um, I think it's kind of been Hofer's net for the past like 15 games. You go back to game number 26. Hofer started and shut out the Mammoth, right? He then started game 27, 29, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 37, game 39, and game 40. So like Benner hasn't really gotten the starts. He has started, if my math is correct, one, two, three, 4 games in the last 15. And so, or 15 or so. My math could be a little bit off on that. That's just sort of quick numbers, but it's pretty lopsided. And to Joel Hofer's credit, he shut out the Jets. He shut out the Mammoth. He got wins over Ottawa, Chicago, Florida, and Nashville. And so there's a few losses and some pretty bad losses mixed in there. But the wins have looked good for Hof, and so uh, I think he's definitely earned the spot. But yeah, like I said, and like you just said, it should be Binnington's spot. It should be his role. And maybe they're just giving him space to sort of stay healthy before the Olympics. Maybe they're giving him some time to try and get things right, and hopefully it'll work. But yeah, in the new year, he definitely needs to figure something out and look like a starter again.
Yeah.
All right. Where do you want to go next? Do you have one that you want to hit? We can sort of take turns if you do have one.
Um, I feel like the big New Year resolution on my mind is probably with our next guy on the list here is the leader of this team, the engine that makes it go, who has not been going, Robert Thomas.
Yep.
And Thomas has got to play like a 1C again. I think the two have drawn a lot of comparisons throughout their um, careers for good reason, same draft year, blah blah blah. But Suzuki is looking like one of the better young Canadian players playing right now, and Thomas's career is going the exact opposite way. Um, and so he's not only losing standing with the Blues, he's losing standing in the national media, and he's losing standing um, on really all fronts as only a 25-year-old skater, or 26. I think he's 26. Um, but
Um, let's see, 20
the way
26. Yep.
the way that he has to go about redeeming himself is by performance on the ice and by scoring points. He's had some good nights, but he really has been vanishing and disappearing for games and not having that consistent night in and night out effort. And I think it could be a practice thing. So I think for Thomas, to me, this puts into question some questions of leadership by example. If he's really that kind of leader, if he can't himself be the example to lead this team. So it's got me and the Blues soul searching a bit. And Robert Thomas's resolution is to quell the doubts and um, once again return to his his 1C self.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple stats here um, that are kind of stark when you look at them. Um, So first of all, if you just look at the pace that Robert Thomas is on right now for 25, 26, um, he excuse me, he missed a few games, right? But so far this year, he I'm getting it pulled up here. He has 9 goals, 20 assists, so 29 points, right? He's on pace for an 82 game season of 20 goals, 45 points, and around 66, or excuse me, 45 assists, around 66 points. There's a couple decimals there that sort of bump it up to 66. Um, 66 points is not where you want your leading scorer to be, and I think that's putting it lightly. That would be his worst point total since 22-23 when he had 65 points, and he was still sort of firmly in a developmental phase. I might argue at that point. Um, this is supposed to be your sort of game breaking guy.
Hmm.
Your like you said, engine to the offense, and we just haven't seen any of that game breaking talent this season. We saw a good glimpse of it for the second half of the year last year. He really took over games and took over the ice, and not necessarily in the way that a lot of players do by scoring goals, but in generating offense and driving play and assisting goals. He showed that game breaking talent late last year, and that's why we were so excited about his season coming into this year. We thought if he can get off to a decent start, he has a chance at 100 points if he plays like that for, 3 quarters of the year. And so far, we're almost halfway through, and it just hasn't looked good for him. He doesn't look like that type of player so far. And I'm not saying that I don't think he can do that still. I'm not saying that I don't think he's got it. Um, but I don't know, man. It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm having trouble finding something where I don't know, maybe but if you look at like the leading um, the leading point point getters, point scorers by team, I think 29. It would take some time to put this together or pull this up, but I think 29 is probably towards the bottom in terms of points by a leading scorer for a team around the league. So again, it's not like we can fairly expect this guy to be a McKinnon, a McDavid, or even like a I don't know, Sam Reinhart, or some, I mean, I don't know, maybe that is fair, but like he should be higher for sure. Like it's not fair to expect him to be like the type of 1C that is a generational superstar or anything like that. But I think expecting a little more is totally fair at this point in the season. I think it would be fair to expect north of 40 points for him at this point, and it just hasn't been that. Okay, next guy I want to touch on is uh, who is a guy that's been a bit of a surprise for the Blues this year. He is third in points for the Blues. He is tied for the team lead in goals. It is who everyone thought would be in those places at the start of the season. It's Justin Falk, who we all expected to be tied for the leading goal scorer and third in points on the team. Justin Falk, defenseman. So Falk is having a great year, which is something we've discussed a little bit, but it's disappointing that this couldn't line up with a better team wide performance. Um, but maybe those things are somewhat linked, as you have maybe brought up. I think Alec in the past. Maybe these are linked in a way where Justin Falk has sort of had to be the one to step up, and no one else is taking it, and so Justin Falk is sort of falling into these opportunities a little bit more. Um, who knows? But he looks good. He looks like he's having a great year. He's uh, already had his best year in terms of goal scoring in um, 3 years. So in 22-23, he scored 11 goals, 39 assists, and 50 points. And so At this point, he's at 10 goals and 10 assists. Um, so having his best offensive year in a long time already. And let me see what he's pacing for at this point. He is on pace for an 82 game stat line of, yeah, I guess, I mean, it sort of makes sense. 20 goals, 20 assists, and 41 points. So I probably could have done that math in my head. But, anyways, um, yeah, I mean, great year for Falk. So, in terms of New Year's resolutions for him, I'm just saying keep it up, but also, you know, don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of a change of scenery. And so, I think what I'm getting at is I think the Blues should flip Justin Falk, trade him at the deadline, because I think he's going to be probably in a league where there's. I mean, just look at the Eastern Conference, dude. Like the parity in the Eastern Conference is crazy. The last place in the East are the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're only 4 points out of a wild card spot. Like the Eastern Conference standings are changing so much day to day. And so I think there's going to be a lot of teams out there that might convince themselves that they have a shot. And so there could be a lot of buyers out there and not a ton of sellers. And so a guy like Justin Falk, who probably wouldn't turn a lot of heads most years, uh, could turn some heads and find some suitors in a year where there's not a lot of sellers, and a lot of teams think that they could be in it. So, you know, I think this could be a great sort of stars aligning moment for the Blues, who have probably needed to move on from Justin Falk for a while. And he doesn't have a full no trade. He's got a modified no trade right now, a 15-team no trade list that went into effect this season. And so they could go ahead and trade him without his approval. But maybe the best package will come from one of those teams on that list. And so for him, and it's sort of a selfish one, I'm just saying keep it up and don't be afraid to waive that clause if you have to really help the Blues out. But it's sort of a little bit of wishful thinking maybe. But thoughts on Falk and his performance this year, and his potential as a sort of trade chip for the Blues.
I think it's exactly the year to move off of a contract that you've been trying to move off of for quite a while now. And so for Falk, his resolution is just to keep doing what he's doing, which in a sense is kind of the resolution for any athlete or hockey player. But I think for Falk especially, he can get to potentially playing for something again because the Blues may or may not be playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs this season. Um, you never know, but uh,
12 game
Falk
win streak, baby.
probably wants more of an opportunity, and after playing for the Blues for I think 5 years now, 5 seasons or so, could want a change of scenery just for that reason, anyways. And maybe he is playing to get out of St. Louis, or maybe he's not. Maybe he's just getting his head down and knowing that what he's doing is bringing success to himself. So why not enjoy the fruits of his labor while he's got it? But yeah, Falk definitely needs to be a trade piece for this team if we're being honest with ourselves and if the team is being honest with itself. This is the best time to trade a contract you've been trying to move forever. This has to be the year. This has to be the time. And I think they will. But that's, I guess, how I see Falk's role playing into this team.
Yeah, and if you're Falk, I mean, like teams, let me back up here. If you're Justin Falk, you've only got after this year one more season left on your contract, right? Um, and he'll be a UFA in 2027 at the age of 35. At that point, he's probably just going to be looking to sign a sort of shorter term deal. If he can get moved to a team that has a playoff spot, and sort of is able to perform for that team, when it's time to sign a new contract in 2027, teams will pay a lot of money for a guy that has the experience and has sort of had success, whether or not he's been like a main contributor or whatever. Um, I think that can sort of bump up your value if you're a guy like Falk. And so, hopefully, hopefully he'll keep it up. I feel like we say that a lot. Hopefully this will happen. Hopefully that'll happen. But yeah, hopefully he will look like he has for the remainder of this season. And the Blues don't kid themselves that they would want to hold on to a guy like that, and sort of like you said, make the trade that they've been trying to make for a long time. Um, okay, who's next for you? I think we can probably do a few more here. Um, who do you got next for a resolution for next year?
A resolution for next year, I think the only other one that I would probably go to is a very hot button issue in the Blues sphere, Mr. Pavel Buchnevich. Um, Buchnevich has had a sort of hotter stretch of games as of late,
Hmm.
and hopefully that continues because he has not been playing up to his contract details and his expectation of his role on the team. He's leading the way in games played. He's played every game for the Blues, and is their second scorer. So there is something to be said there, but doing it at a very slowed down pace and rate, and is not scoring goals at the rate that he once used to either. Um, so for Buchnevich, I would say his resolution is to regain his youthful kindling or whatever it is that makes him burn as a skater, because that's what this team is lacking right now, is a consistent 25 to 30 goal scorer. Right now they're getting a player who barely is going to scratch 20, and that's just a much different player. That's not a player that you pay $8 million for. That's something that you pay somewhere in the realm of $4 million for, or 4 to 6, I guess. But Buchnevich's contract is looking like a potential albatross, and it's up to him to put that pressure off by performing. So for Buchnevich, I think his resolution should be to regain his goal scoring mojo.
I think that's a good one, and he's on pace for not even 20. He's on pace for 14, just like 14 and a half goals, um, and 43 points. I mean, that would be his lowest goal total um, since 2017-18, and his lowest point total since 2018-19. So not excuse me, not a good look for Buchnevich, who's earning a lot of money, like you said, and isn't living up to that contract, and had a 2 goal game against Washington coming out of the break, and so good to see him get something going. But yeah, I think this is a good one, right? And whether it's for the Blues to to keep him long term, or for them to trade him at some point, getting back to that performance is going to be really important for the team as a whole, right? Because um, this just isn't working with Buchnevich right now. And so if you want to trade him, you want him to be able to demonstrate some potential so that you're able to get a good package. But if you're wanting to keep him around, and that's probably the more likely scenario right now, at least, then he has to be better than this. So yeah, this is a good one. Just rediscover that mojo, or whatever was the way you put it, that goal scoring mojo, because he has to sort of be one of the leading scoring wingers for this team behind Jordan Kyrou, and it hasn't been that. So yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
um, I think the only other player I want to touch on is Dylan Holloway, who I know is out with injury right now, and has had some injury troubles that have sort of defined his year so far. Whether it's returning from a longer term thing at the start of the season, which potentially sort of hampered his play and made it tough for him at the beginning of the year, or whether it's this high, I think it was a high ankle thing that he's been sidelined with now. Um, so my resolution for him when he comes back is there's a couple things. First, stay healthy for the rest of the year is a big one, and then I want to see him level up a little bit. And by level up, I don't mean like look like an elite player necessarily, but just get back to what we saw last year, level up based on his play from this year. And so I think part of that is being that dynamic goal scoring winger. And at this point, we've seen some flashes of it. He has 8 goals and is sitting in fourth for the team in goals scored. Um, but I think it's been a little bit of a step back for him this year. So be that dynamic goal scorer, play some solid defense, and then what I want to see from him is a little bit more playmaking. I think that's an area of his game that he can finish, right. He can finish a play. He can play defense pretty well, as we've seen, especially last year. But one area of his game that I want to see level up is the playmaking. And whether that's driving a little bit of play with his speed and sort of his body, or whether that's um, you know, becoming a better passer, whatever the case may be. I think that's one area of his game that could really improve. And so when he comes back, I hope he plays the rest of the year and sort of gets on a good pace and sort of starts to round out his game as his development continues.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because he is still such a young player. But I think
Right.
this is the time when you would hope to see some kind of next step coming for a young player. And Holloway has to be one of the younger, more exciting pockets of talent on the roster. So getting to see that maximized under a coach like Jim Montgomery would be awesome, and could be what sets this team over into becoming that next tier of a hockey team. If you can have a middle sixer or a top sixer like Dylan Holloway at his full potential, that would be a next step to becoming a cup contender once again. And if that's the end goal, then it definitely is going to take Holloway to leveling up, like you said. So I think you all put that all really well. That um, this one I do wonder if it comes this season just with how bad the team is. If he can find that next level, that next gear in a year when so much has gone wrong for him and his teammates, that I think is even better of a sign of good things to come. But if it doesn't happen, I wouldn't be all that concerned because one, he is so young, and two, because of everything else that is going on around him that isn't necessarily his fault. It's hard to thrive in that kind of environment. So, if this is like more of a challenge of a New Year's resolution, excuse me, that I really like and I really think could become something to monitor as we witness more hockey into 2026.
Yeah, for sure. In the interest of time, I think we should move on to our final two here. But I do want to say that this is by no means an extensive list or an exhaustive list of what we want Blues players to accomplish. I think these are just some of the high points that we thought of. So if any of our any of you listening or watching think of some others, let us know. I think you can definitely leave comments on Spotify. You can leave comments on YouTube. So let us know some of your resolutions or goals that you think some of these players need to accomplish. And if you haven't already, I think this would be a good time to mention you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, it's the best way to help us out. Like this video, follow, rate, review wherever you listen. We're on Spotify and Apple. And follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. So just wanted to drop the plugs there. The last player I want to hit here is actually Philip Broberg, and for him, it's a simple one. Go win that gold medal at the Olympics, buddy. Um, I really hope he makes Team Sweden. I think he's played his way on personally, and I just hope they're watching. We're watching what he's doing over in Sweden. If he makes it, boy, would I be excited. I think roster announcements are coming pretty soon, so I think one thing we're definitely going to do is once those have been announced and we know which Blues are going to Milan, we'll definitely come on and do a bit of a reaction and a preview to some of these Olympic stuff. So that's coming up soon. Okay, last ones to touch on. We've got a couple other Blues personnel. We've moved on from players. Alec, I'll let you take it first. And yeah, who do you wanna discuss first?
I think our first Blues personnel to discuss is probably, I think the shorter discussion is what Doug Armstrong has left to do
Yeah.
for this team and what role he can fulfill. Um, And so I think Doug Armstrong's New Year resolution should be leave this team in a better spot than it started at the beginning of this year. And I don't mean coming into this year, because coming into this year, we all thought that this team is going to be a lot better than they were. But I mean, leave this team in a better spot than once we realized that uh, things were not all right in Bluesland. In a better spot there and get a good return at the deadline. Trade away Justin Falk, trade away any other pieces you see fit, even if it's like a Jonathan Berggren. That might be the perfect way to um, maximize and capitalize on value. Um, do what you think you need to do to set this team up for success in the future, and for Alex Steen.
Yeah, I think this is a great one. There's, a lot of ways that we could take this discussion, and I think we could definitely open it up for an entire episode if we wanted to. Um, but I don't think this is the time for that. So my thoughts on this one, I think that Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen, you know, I think they just need to be realistic with this team. Like I think they could kid themselves, or maybe to put it differently, if the Blues start to look a little bit better, they could like convince management that they shouldn't be a team that sells. That's sort of the route that they took last year. They started to heat up at exactly the last minute, and it worked out okay. But I don't think they can rely on that. So I think just being realistic and honest about what this team is really important in that regard. And so I think the Blues should probably be sellers at this deadline. I've sort of mentioned a few times that I'm sort of out on the playoff hopes already. I just don't think this team has the juice right now, and I think there's some other teams that are looking like they do. And so it'll be, excuse me, can have a bit of a cold right now, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle if the Blues really want to make the playoffs. I don't really personally see it happening this year, and so I think this is probably just a good time to go ahead and reset a little bit. Doug Armstrong sort of claimed, and I think we agreed with him at the time, that the whatever he said, the whatever was over, and maybe more realistically, it's not. And I think what I do think is interesting is that the Blues and sort of the structure of certain contracts on the team, I think, line up really interestingly with this trade deadline. You've got Justin Falk, who only has a year and a half left on his deal, and so it's not an untradeable deal, right? Same with Braden Shen, who actually has an extra year, so 2.5 years left on his contract. Not an untradeable deal. There's been a lot of buzz around him in the past. You've got some different guys, role guys, older guys like Matthew Joseph, Alexei Toropchenko, Oscar Sundquist, who are going to be UFAs at the end of the year. I'm not saying trade all of those guys, but you can probably trade one of them, or I mean, if you can find a return, like it's going to be tough. But they're not hamstringed with a ton of long-term contracts. I think there are some players like that could be traded away. I don't know that they should right now, but Jordan Binnington only has a year and a half left, and so like that's a tradable contract if they decide that that's a route that they need to go. I'm not saying I think they should just tear it down to the studs, but what I am saying is there's enough difference makers on this team that have tradable contracts. The Blues could find a return for those players, and I think the market could also line up in a beneficial way for the Blues. Whereas I pointed out earlier, there could be a lot of buyers and not a lot of sellers, and so that could really jack up the price for a guy like Justin Falk or a guy like Braden Shen. So I agree with you. I think they should probably, I don't know, I guess slow play it unless someone really blows you out of the water with a deal early on. Um, but to be honest, I think we might. I think Doug Armstrong has been a little bit preoccupied probably with Team Canada stuff, and maybe that's why we haven't seen a big Blues trade or anything like that happen already. Um, but maybe not. So I think slow playing a little bit and letting the prices run up a little bit is probably the best way to go by to go about this trade deadline. So yeah, I think this is a good one.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay, last one, and this is another Blues personnel resolution. It's for Jim Montgomery, head coach of the Blues, of course. And our resolution for him is, you'd think, not too difficult, but the way they've been playing this year, you never know. The resolution for Jim Montgomery is just to not finish last in the Central Division. Um, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they were able to get a high pick, but I think finishing last in the division would just be um, it would be kind of inexcusable with the roster that they have. They don't have a last place in the division type of roster. I don't think so at all. And so um, I will say I think they're going to have some competition. The Chicago Blackhawks um, are currently last with 34 points in 38 games. The Winnipeg Jets also have 34 points in one fewer game. They are really struggling right now. So both of them have four fewer points than the Blues, but they also have games in hand. The Nashville Predators have the same number of points as the Blues, but have two games in hand, and so they've looked a little bit better as of late. There are enough teams out there in the Central that aren't looking good. I would say probably the best three teams in the league right now are all in the Central, but I would also say that probably the two worst teams are in the Central right now. Um, at least the worst team in the league is in the Central, in my opinion, um, and that's the Chicago Blackhawks, of course. But yeah, I mean, thoughts on this? I think this is not a last place roster. Like, they have looked bad. They are clearly not a great hockey team right now, but they are also not a last place team. So, um, thoughts on this one, and maybe how Jim Montgomery can lead this team to at least a seventh place in the Central finish.
I mean, like you said, the competition in the NHL right now for last in the league feels pretty weirdly hot. Just that there aren't really like terrible teams like there have been in years past. And the Blues are one of the bad teams this year. They're maybe not a completely terrible team, as they are still like above a 450 points percentage. You know, they're a losing team, but they're not an unplayably bad team. Um, but I think with the players in the roster coming back is a big one. So like Jake Neighbors was out for about the first month or so. That took a hit to the team. Jordan Kyrou and was out for about a month. Jimmy Snuggerud was out for what, 2 months, I think. Um, and then there was a scare with Broberg for a little bit. Like the Blues, as any team does in the National Hockey League, but this year has been the Blues' year to draw the short end of the stick, it feels like, when it comes to injury luck. Um, and so that has definitely set the Blues back. So if they can get a little bit better, healthier in that regard, in that department, I think that there should be some positive regression to the mean for just having a team that you can consistently play with night in and night out. Um, and then also, I think we're seeing some of the goaltending woes already sort of turn around and become strengths again. And because of that, I think that there's a higher floor for what this team wants to do, which is not suck completely, um, and not finish last in the Central would be, uh, to some would be bad, but in my heart of hearts, I want to see this team succeed to the best of their ability. And prove that they're not, an all-time bad team, even if that is still within like the bottom four of the league or whatever. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing here really is the goaltending, like you pointed out. I mean, you look at like team metrics of like goals allowed, or I guess, I mean, um, well, okay, so I'll say this. You look at goals allowed in the league, they are tied for the most. They're tied with Anaheim Ducks and the Toronto Maple Leafs for most goals allowed of any team so far with 93. You look at other metrics like expected goals allowed, and they're not like great, but they're not bottom of the league. You look at things like scoring chances against, they're sort of middle of the pack. You look at high danger chances against, again, not great, but not horrible. And then you look at their goals allowed. It is pretty bad, and so I think team wide, they're not playing horribly defensively. I really do think the goaltending struggling so much has really sunk them this year. And it's not all on the goalies, I should say, but as that starts to stable out and stabilize, I think um, we do see a bit of improved play with them. And like you said, we've already started to see a little bit of that. Joe Hofer starting to turn a corner, and hopefully Jordan Binnington can too. So yeah, I think this is this is an easy one to achieve in my opinion, and it's literally just like don't fall apart. Now it might get harder if they do decide to sell off some assets at the deadline, right? You sell off Justin Falk, who's playing a lot of minutes for you. You trade away your team captain and top six centerman and Braden Shen. Things do probably get a lot tougher. Um, but I think even if that happens, they're still better than an eighth place in the Central type of team. So I think this is definitely achievable for them. And for a team that is trying to, whether or not you agree with it, what they're trying to do is become competitive again more quickly than a full blown rebuild, right? And so for a team that has made that their goal, a last place in the division finish is probably a pretty tough thing, especially mentally, to climb back from. And I don't know that that's sort of the way that we would want them to go. Even if you do that, you're not guaranteed a number one pick. You have a better chance for sure, but I don't think the chances are better enough. And so I think the cost could be pretty big on that one. And so um, they could still end up with a decent draft pick, even if they don't finish bottom of the league here. So I think this is a good one, and I think that like I said, should be achievable for them.
Yeah, I hope
Well,
so.
any other last minute, or I guess it's not quite last minute because it's only the 30th, but any other last final resolutions for the Blues, or for players, or the team as a whole?
Um, I just have fun.
That's a good one. Have fun. Um,
Because we are at kindergarten levels of pining.
you say that, but like honestly, that was kind of why they won 12 in a row last year, is because they like started having fun. Like that, like we talked about, like the clubhouse and the energy and the power of friendship. Like that's kind of what it took for them to get back in it, was having fun again. They don't look like they're having fun right now, so I think that is actually a good one for them.
Robert Thomas needs to get a letter from a mysterious stranger which will tell him to go on a magic quest where he can reclaim the fun of the team, the power of friendship, and wield
Power
it
of
to
friendship.
his on his side as a weapon against the darkness
Mm. All right, I like it. That should be
during
doable
the
for.
Olympic break.
He'll have plenty of time for a quest. Um, So for the Blues to close out the year, they have a pretty tough draw tomorrow night against the Colorado Avalanche in Colorado. They will start off 2026 with a few tough matchups as well. They'll face the Vegas Golden Knights at home, and then the Montreal Canadiens. That'll be back to back. So two good teams, and hopefully, I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully they have fun. I'll just leave it there. Well, we have taken a bit of a break, as I said, the past couple weeks. Our goal is to get back up to some regular content again. The streaming situation is still TBD, so we appreciate everyone for bearing with us through all that. At the very least, we'll continue to provide videos here. As I said, we'll have some exciting stuff coming up soon. Olympic roster announcements drop, I believe, on the 31st. I believe tomorrow is at least for U.S. and Canada. World Juniors is going on right now. Adam Yurchik just had a filthy overtime winner against Finland.
Yeah, he
Um,
did. Having
so
a
we should
great year.
He's having such a good year. We're gonna have Mike Meyer on pretty soon, hopefully, to talk about Blues prospects and World Junior stuff. So stay tuned for that. That'll be an exciting episode that we're trying to get to early in the new year. So prospect coverage coming soon, and yeah, we'll try to. I think we'll also do a halfway mark tier list for the Blues coming up soon. So lots of good stuff coming your way. We'd appreciate if you would stick with us and follow along for all of that. The best way to do that, the best way to support us, is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share the channel with a friend if you haven't already. That can help us out too. Like this video, leave a comment if you want to. Follow, rate, review on Spotify and Apple. Those ratings and reviews go a long way. And then follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod, where we post a lot of other great stuff and love to interact with anyone over there. So that'll do it for us this time. Thanks for listening and for watching. We'll see you next time, and let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues!